Hey everybody, it's Ricardo Gorski, the founder of Tax.One, where we help individuals and businesses pay as little tax as legally possible. And in today's video, we are talking about the best country to escape the UK to. And spoiler alert, no, it is not Dubai, even though we will talk about it a little bit. This video is about an underrated alternative next to Dubai that a lot of British individuals are actually aware of, but not many have thought about relocating here. So let's start with the first topic, and that is why even leave the UK in the first place. And unfortunately, nowadays, this is not really that hard of a question. The UK just announced their November budget 2025, and in there it is clear that the UK wants to increase taxes to a level that the UK actually has never seen before. We have the highest tax burden in the history of the UK. British taxpayers can easily pay over 40 different tax rates, and the reasoning behind those constant tax hikes is that the Labour Party is convinced that they can tax their way to growth, that they can reduce national debt and fill the tax gap by just introducing new taxes, increasing existing taxes, reducing limits and abolishing certain benefits completely. As per the official government.uk website, the total theoretical tax liabilities stand at an astonishing £46.8 billion in absolute terms in the 23 to 24 tax year. And who has to pay for that? You. And trust me that the UK is actually making sure of that, because they have implemented the Connect system. It is a smart computer system that is on the lookout, on the hunt for underreported or not disclosed income, activities, holdings, investments, offshore bank accounts, and whatever there is. And they are using multiple sources. They are also adding AI and data mining tools to their systems to make sure that everyone in the UK is paying their taxes. But that's a topic for another video. Let's continue with the exit tax. Luckily, the recent November budget didn't include a classic exit taxation as we know it from Germany, for example, but there are special statutory residence tests and long-term residency rules where the UK can still tax certain income and gains for up to 5 years after leaving, and also inheritance tax still applies even if you leave the UK. And in combination with many other reasons to leave the UK, such as the ones here on the right, I think it is pretty clear why the UK is currently #1 in losing wealthy citizens across the whole world. Estimations are well over 15,000 millionaires that will leave the UK in 2025 alone, and many of them will actually relocate to the UAE, to Dubai, which is a great place to be. No question about that. I actually regularly visit Dubai. As you can see me here at the Dubai Marina. I have a free zone company there. I actually have an Emirates ID from the UAE, and I will fly to Dubai in about 1 month from now to spend my winter there. So don't get me wrong, I'm not talking down or bad about Dubai. I like the country, but I think that there is a very interesting alternative for many British nationals. But in order to fully understand why I actually think that this alternative might be superior for many individuals and families specifically, let's first look at Dubai and the most important information about it. So there are multiple different golden visa options, which is essential for non-UAE citizens to get a golden visa, to have a permanent residence permit in the UAE. And once you have your PR in the UAE, then you can also become a tax resident of the UAE, which means you can enjoy a low tax environment, such as a 0% income tax, a 9% corporate tax, and 5% VAT on local sourced income. In addition to that, I can tell you from my own experience that setting up a free zone company specifically is rather easy. The lifestyle there is definitely safe and luxurious. I mean, everyone knows the stories about just leaving an expensive watch somewhere out in public and it will not be stolen. And coming from the UK, especially London area where knife crime is a daily thing there, I think this is definitely something that you will appreciate living there. And in addition to that, the real estate market in the UAE is definitely booming, so you will have no regrets bets in buying properties there. Now, those are definitely reasons to relocate to the UAE, start a business there, live there, and just do your thing there. Now, with every coin, there also comes a flip side, and in my eyes, the disadvantages of the UAE, the biggest ones are the high living costs. Whenever I'm in the UAE, I definitely spend at least twice the amount that I'm spending here where I'm currently permanently residing. There is also a different political system. The UAE is not based on a democracy, which is not a bad thing per se, because the monarchs that are currently in power are definitely visionaries, but it just takes one crazy monarch and he can then just lead the country into a complete different direction. But this is not a political video, so let's continue with the next one, which is very hot in summer, especially around July, August. You do not want to spend time, especially during peak sun, outdoors. Then this one should be no landscape, then different culture and religion and artificial environment. What I mean with that is that whenever people spend quite some time in Dubai, they just crave going out of the big city, going for a hike, going for a walk, or just being around trees. And so all this leads to the main question, all right, what is the alternative? And the underrated alternative is Cyprus, because in Cyprus you will enjoy affordable luxury living with a monthly fixed cost of around 3,000 to 4,000 euros that I spend every month here in Cyprus. I have a penthouse, I have 2 cars, one of which is a McLaren 570S, so a supercar you can say. I have a motorbike. I spend all the money for my girlfriend. We are going out for dinner rather often, and we don't even look at prices when we go grocery shopping. And I know for a fact that in January and February I will spend at least 10,000 euros per month in Dubai. And that leads to the fact that so many wealthy individuals are actually relocating to Cyprus, and you just see that Cyprus has a rise of Cyprus being a luxury real estate hotspot with the Limassol Marina right here, amazing residences right by the beach, yachts parked here at the marina, having skyscrapers here in the background. The west side of Limassol right here is also expanding now with amazing projects and a huge master plan that will turn Limassol into the new Silicon Valley of Europe, as many people call it. And so this leads to the next point, which is also the perfect climate. Even though Cyprus can be hot, don't get me wrong, July, August is definitely hot here, and I personally would rather spend my time outside of Cyprus in July and August, but those are the only 2 months where it's a little bit uncomfortable, but still not as uncomfortable as in the UAE. Next one is Christian and democratic country, so just as British people are used to. Then beautiful nature, like absolutely stunning. 40% of the island is covered in forests. We have Mount Olympus. We even have snow during winter here in Cyprus. When it's a cold winter, a few days of snow, we can go skiing. There is a ski resort in the mountain area. We have the Akamas region. We have blue lagoons. We have waterfalls, natural wonders like beautiful. I love this country for the nature. Next is the strategic geolocation, and if we look at this map right here, we see Cyprus being here in the Middle East, this tiny island. Then we have the UAE here, Dubai is somewhere here. And then we have the UK, your home country. And just look at how beautiful Cyprus is, just in the middle between UK and UAE, which leads to the fact that many UK families have at least a holiday home here in Cyprus and use the location of Cyprus strategically, where, for example, they have their main residence here in Cyprus, go to the UAE for business, and to the UK to visit family, both of which are just 4-hour flights away. So that's definitely another reason for Cyprus. Then also culture and history. I mean, history of Cyprus is so rich, goes back thousands of years, whereas Dubai was literally created a few decades ago. Also, the Mediterranean lifestyle is something that I just love. I mean, look at this picture that I took just a few days ago at the Paphos harbor here with the beautiful sunrise. This was about 7 a.m. And what I personally love so much is just waking up very early, grabbing my goggles, a coffee, and going out of my house, hearing nothing, no cars, just birds singing, the sun rising, me going down to the harbor and having a swim with a turtle a few days ago. Absolutely beautiful experience. And as said earlier, the golden visa is quite important, especially since Brexit. You also need a permanent residence permit here in Cyprus, but luckily Cyprus offers also golden visa options in Cyprus and even a path to EU citizenship, which the UAE doesn't offer to most people. Then also, even though you can argue that the EU has its disadvantages, the banking system is definitely something that I enjoy while dealing with other EU countries. And I do have banks in the UAE, which I use with my free zone company, but I always have complications and double due diligence and compliance and KYC and AML processes, which just take so much time to answer questions, to send or receive a transfer from outside of the UAE. And then another point that I also appreciate so much coming from Frankfurt, which is also a rather criminal city, is that Cyprus is one of the EU's safest countries. In 6 years of living here, I have not heard about a single knife crime. And even though I would not leave my expensive watch outside in public, I can definitely see myself raising a family here. Also for British people, it is interesting that there is a strong British community. Also, the Germans are now realizing the potential and the beauty of Cyprus. So somewhat Cyprus becomes the next more calm Mallorca, you can say, but also a huge British community, especially here in the Paphos area. So you might definitely run into old friends or something like that, because my girlfriend is actually British. And when she came here, we randomly ran into her uncle in the supermarket. So that definitely showed me how small this world can be, especially in Cyprus. And the real estate market here compared to the UAE is so much more easy. The supply and demand ratio is much more controllable, and it doesn't really matter where you buy a property, you will almost always find a tenant, just because the supply is so low here in Cyprus and construction takes some time, but demand of properties are increasing with all the businesses, families and entrepreneurs relocating to Cyprus for the tax incentives and so forth. And here you see my business partner Elias with David, with Richard and with Dimitar, all of which are actually British, and they just purchased their property here in Cyprus with our partner company Tax.One. So if you're interested in investing into the Cyprus real estate market, definitely make sure to reach out to us on Tax.One, and my business partner Elias will contact you as soon as possible. But now back to our topic, which is taxes, and I would argue that the tax system here in Cyprus is at least as interesting as in the UAE, and I will explain to you now why. So first of all, Cyprus offers the most interesting non-dom status in the EU, with 0% taxes on your worldwide dividend and interest income for 17 years. After the 17 years, you also have the option to extend your non-dom status, but what I like about the non-dom status so much is that it is an actual physical certificate stamped by the Cyprus tax authorities, completely legitimate, that will exempt you from all dividend and interest income that you receive from all public or private companies. And that creates an extremely low tax environment for entrepreneurs and investors, while staying 100% compliant with all international tax rules and policies. And the next important tax rate is the corporate tax, of course, and that is currently 12.5%, but as of January 1st, 2026, it will be 15%, which will again be completely compliant with OECD's global minimum corporate tax. So while many people are worried about this tax increase, to me it just shows the strategic move of the Cyprus government to increase the taxes to the lowest minimum tax rate that has to be implemented to stay compliant with OECD and not be grey or blacklisted as the UAE, for example, was just a few months ago. And that means easier bank account openings for you as a natural person, such as Revolut, for example, which operates in Cyprus but not in the UAE. This also means higher ratings from international agencies such as S&P Global, which will then also lead to the fact that Cyprus is more investable, the loans become cheaper and the risk becomes less. Then there is no inheritance tax here in Cyprus. There is no capital gains, which means that stock trading is also tax-free here in Cyprus. There is no withholding tax, which leads up the opportunity that with the double tax treaty with the UK and Cyprus, you can shift your assets and cash specifically from your UK entity to a Cyprus holding company at 0% tax. No tax at source in the UK and no dividend tax in Cyprus. And again, as of January 1st, 2026, there will also be an 8% crypto tax, which Nomad Capitalist defined as Cyprus just changed the crypto game, because Cyprus is one of the very few, if not the only EU country that actually supports and incentivizes crypto investors, startups and businesses. And so all this leads to an actual visualization for a tax example specifically for entrepreneurs with their own company and business. So first of all, the UK, and the corporate tax there is 25%, and with the highest dividend tax bracket you will pay up to close to 40% of dividend tax now, with the additional 2% that was just proposed in the most recent budget, and also additional charges and contributions and more tax rates. Like in Germany, for example, we have an additional church tax, and all kinds of different payments that you never even signed up for. In the UK, we have national insurance as well. All those apply as well, so that this leads to an effective tax burden in the UK of at least 50%. So from £100,000 that you make as an entrepreneur, you will easily pay half of it to the HMRC. And so I think it is pretty clear that you have to escape this high tax environment if you're an entrepreneur that wants to keep as much as possible from your money, especially if the country does not give you what it promises. And that leads to the first option that we discussed earlier, and a very popular destination. Again, as I said, I have nothing against the UAE. Don't get me wrong, but this video is about an alternative, and you clicked at this video because you was probably interested in that. And so let's look at the UAE. Corporate tax 9%. As of a few years ago, they implemented the 9% corporate tax, which is affecting almost every business. Yes, there is a small business relief, but this is only until January 1st, 27, and also has a cap actually. So let's just take the 9% to make things easy. But there is no income or dividend tax as a UAE tax resident. So that leads to an effective tax contribution of £9,000. But I have to mention that the setup, maintenance and lifestyle costs are higher in the UAE than in most countries. And I can confirm that because I have my own structure in the UAE, and I pay double, if not triple, the amount that I'm paying for the exact same services here in Cyprus. Talking about Cyprus, let's look at Cyprus, and that is, we have a corporate tax of 12.5% at the moment, but it will most likely be increased to 15% as said earlier. Then the dividend tax is actually officially 0%, but there is an NHS, yes, the healthcare contribution of 2.65%, which leads to an approximate effective tax contribution of £15,000 for an income of £100,000. But Cyprus is a low-cost environment, so it heavily depends on your wealth, on your income, on your revenue, which of those two make more sense from a tax point of view. Also, this was of course the most basic, simple comparison between different jurisdictions and their tax environment, because taxes are very individual. So in any case, we definitely recommend you to reach out to us on Tax.One so that you can get your individual consultation call, where we will look at your individual situation, your setup, your business, and tell you which jurisdiction is best for you. Tax.One operates in both jurisdictions, UAE and Cyprus, so in any case we are able to help you in every step of the way, regardless of where you decide to relocate to. But my point is that relocating to another country, especially if it's physically and you want to start a new life chapter, there is not as simple as just looking at the lowest headline taxes. There are so many other variables that come into play, and that is why I'm now presenting the advantages but also disadvantages of Cyprus, because I want to remain unbiased. Yes, I'm currently living in Cyprus, but if things hit the fan and I don't enjoy my life here in Cyprus, I'm the first person that will leave to the UAE or wherever I think that it is the best country to relocate to, and I will also publicly say so in the videos of this channel, so definitely make sure to subscribe. I'm curious myself if or when this day will ever come. Now, advantages of Cyprus. Number one, obviously tax incentives, which we already discussed in very detail, and there are multiple other videos on this channel about the tax benefits of Cyprus. But next to the non-dom status, there are many other incentives that the Cyprus government invented to just attract wealthy individuals, entrepreneurs, investors, and so forth, such as the IP box regime, which actually lowers the corporate tax from 15% down to just 2.5% on qualifying income. Also, to attract foreign talent, Cyprus also implemented a 50% income tax deduction for foreign talent that relocates to Cyprus. That all leads to the fact that Cyprus has a growing economy and is paying off its debt faster than almost any other EU country. In recent years, Cyprus has changed so much. I'm living on this island for 6 years now, and comparing Cyprus today to when I came here is not even possible. Let's just look at the Limassol skyline. 10 years ago, there was almost no skyscraper. Today, there are 20 and another 20 in the pipeline. This leads to the fact that there is huge investment potential for big investors here in Cyprus. The ROI and capital appreciation is crazy of buying properties and plots here in Cyprus, which is as always driven by supply and demand, and the demand is so high here just because the lifestyle is so beautiful, especially here around Paphos where I live. The sunsets, the sea caves are absolutely beautiful. Almost every day I'm enjoying a beautiful sunset right over the sea here from my penthouse apartment, and I'm just so happy that I made the move to relocate to Cyprus. Also, I'm very much enjoying wine villages with my girlfriend. We love to just book a random Airbnb somewhere in the mountains here of Cyprus, just have a relaxed weekend and then come back here to Paphos. And along the way and just everywhere on this island, there are so many cultural and historical places. And even though I live on this island for many years, I still have the feeling that there is so much more to discover. And coming back to bureaucracy for just a second, Cyprus also has the common law system which the UK has, and a very similar land registry to the UK, because Cyprus actually used to be a British colony back in the days. So Cyprus is by default very much like the UK. We drive on the right side of the road as the king would prefer. We speak English, almost everyone does, and all the governmental and semi-governmental bodies and offices have a very British approach. But now, to be fully transparent, the disadvantages of Cyprus is that Cyprus is a Mediterranean island, and things and services and anything you might encounter, especially when relocating to Cyprus and you just want to set up everything like water, electricity, internet, bringing your furniture here and all that, can take some time because services can be slow and not efficient here. So life in Cyprus, especially in the beginning, as said, can definitely require your patience. But once you are set up here in Cyprus and everything works, you can have a beautiful, productive and peaceful routine here, which I'm enjoying for the last few years now, and I'm just growing my business like I would never be able to do so in Germany, which is very much similar to the UK from so many different angles. But also another disadvantage, quote unquote, so to say, can be for some people that there's a less nightlife here, less big events compared to Dubai, Ibiza and London. So especially younger folks, like young entrepreneurs that leave London area and are used to going out every night and going to pubs or festivals or whatever it is that they just enjoy, coming here to Cyprus can be rather a little bit surprised, because Cyprus is rather quiet, but this is the exact point of Cyprus. But okay, that's about it. If you're serious about leaving the UK, definitely make sure to reach out to us on Tax.One, and if you enjoy those kinds of videos, make sure to subscribe, and then I will see you in the next video.